Anatomy of the respiratory system: nose and nasal cavity. 1. Nose. The entry point for air. 1. It has nostrils that lead to the nasal cavity. 2. Nasal cavity. Warms, moistens, and filters the air. 2. The mucous membranes and tiny hairs, cilia, in the nasal cavity trap dust, microbes, and other particles. Pharynx, throat. 1. A muscular tube that connects the nasal cavity to the larynx and esophagus. 1. It is divided into 3 parts: nasopharynx, behind the nose; oropharynx, behind the mouth; laryngopharynx, below the oropharynx, leading to the larynx. Larynx, voice box. 1. Located below the pharynx. 1. It houses the vocal cords and is involved in sound production. 1. The larynx also acts as a passageway for air and prevents food and liquids from entering the trachea. Trachea, windpipe. 1. A tube that extends from the larynx to the bronchi. 1. It is reinforced with cartilage rings to keep it open and is lined with cilia and mucus to trap and expel debris. Bronchi. 1. The trachea divides into the right and left primary bronchi, each leading to a lung. 1. These further branch into secondary, lobar, and tertiary, segmental, bronchi, progressively getting smaller. Lungs. 1. Right lung. Divided into 3 lobes: superior, middle, inferior. 2. Left lung. Divided into 2 lobes: superior, inferior. 2. It has a slightly different shape to accommodate the heart. 3. Each lung is encased in a pleural membrane, pleura, that produces pleural fluid to reduce friction during breathing. Bronchioles. 1. Smaller branches of the bronchi that spread throughout the lungs. 1. They eventually lead to the alveolar sacs. Alveoli. 1. Tiny air sacs at the end of the bronchioles where gas exchange occurs. 1. The walls of the alveoli are thin and surrounded by capillaries. 1. Oxygen diffuses through the alveolar walls into the blood, and carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood into the alveoli to be exhaled. Respiratory process: inhalation, inspiration. 1. The diaphragm, a dome-shaped muscle at the base of the thoracic cavity, contracts and moves downward. 1. The intercostal muscles, between the ribs, also contract, expanding the thoracic cavity. 2. This creates a negative pressure within the lungs, causing air to flow in through the nose or mouth, down the trachea, and into the lungs. Gas exchange. 1. In the alveoli, oxygen from the inhaled air diffuses through the alveolar walls and into the surrounding capillaries. 1. Simultaneously, carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood into the alveoli to be exhaled. Exhalation, expiration. 1. The diaphragm and intercostal muscles relax, reducing the volume of the thoracic cavity and increasing the pressure in the lungs. 2. This forces air out of the lungs and through the respiratory passages to the outside environment. Regulation of breathing. 1. Medulla oblongata. The respiratory center in the brainstem that controls the rate and depth of breathing based on carbon dioxide levels in the blood. 2. Chemoreceptors. Located in the aorta and carotid arteries, these detect changes in blood pH, carbon dioxide, and oxygen levels, sending signals to the respiratory center to adjust breathing. Common disorders. 1. Asthma. A condition where the airways become inflamed and narrowed, causing difficulty in breathing. 2. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. A progressive disease that obstructs airflow and makes breathing difficult, often caused by smoking. 3. Pneumonia. An infection that inflames the alveoli in the lungs, potentially causing fluid accumulation. 4. Tuberculosis, TB. A bacterial infection that primarily affects the lungs and can cause severe respiratory symptoms. 5. Lung cancer. Uncontrolled growth of abnormal cells in the lungs, often linked to smoking.